Some guys are just born with it, but others they build it. Today I'm sitting with Noah Williamson, one of the most explosive athletes I've ever been around. I mean, we're talking a guy that throws 100 from the outfield, runs a 6'4", 60, and hits baseballs like he owes him something. But here's the thing, that wasn't always Noah. He was a skinny kid, the one that was always overlooked, grinding behind the scenes while nobody was watching. And now, after being released with the Marlins, he's reinventing himself as a pitcher. This is what delayed gratification looks like, and this is what betting on yourself really means. So, Noah, I just want to ask you a couple questions. You've gone through some of the wildest transformations possible from a skinny kid to from this place of a freak athlete, but this didn't happen overnight. Can you walk us through what delayed gratification means to you and what it looked like on the early days of, hyping yourself up when nobody was watching and how that mindset helped you grow into the player you are today?
Of course. I wasn't always what I am right now. Right now, I'm 6'4", 245 pounds. And, that wasn't always the case. Coming out of high school, I was my same height, 6'4", but I was about 170 pounds soaking wet. That's not something that a lot of colleges are interested in and not what would make me the best baseball player I could have been. So going from my first year, not much had changed. I was in a very comfortable state at my school, and there was no one really around me to push me to become the best player I could be. It was only after I got cut from that school that then I finally took a look at myself and was like, I can be better than this.
Mhm.
But the biggest thing, of course, was who I surrounded myself with. Without any of the people, without any of my teammates at Santa Barbara City College, my roommates, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Motivation only goes so far. It lasts for a very short amount of time. For me, delayed gratification is much more than motivation. It's discipline. And it's on the days where you don't want to do the work that you need the person next to you to be like, we're going to go out to the gym. We're going to go out to the field today. We're going to put in the extra work even when you don't want to. And then on the other side, you're going to push them too on the days where they don't want to work. Because then when you start working together, then you start building towards a foundation, you start working towards a certain goal together.
Okay. You're a guy that has had a different story from than anybody else that I've kind of ever met. Could you take us through a quick rundown of your college career and
Mhm.
going into the fact that you really didn't play a college season and didn't have too many college at bats and ended up getting picked up by the Miami Marlins?
Yeah. So I started coming out of high school. I went to a D2 Point Loma Nazarene. I was still undersized, so I ended up redshirting that year. And May came around, and I actually ended up being cut from that school, which at that point I didn't realize, but ended up being the best thing for me and my career. I was very distraught at that time period, but I'm like, this could be an opportunity. So then later that year, I went to Santa Barbara City College, for the next year, and that ended up being COVID year. So we played about, 20 games. I got 20 games worth of at bats, but that didn't end up counting because of COVID. And that COVID time period, a lot of people went indoors, stopped working, decided to, start watching TV, playing games. That wasn't my mindset that I wanted. Not super early. We'd wake up, earlier in the morning, and right when we'd wake up, we would go run between 3 and 5 miles. That was just something we did every single day, right when we got up. Um, we'd come back, we'd make breakfast. Nutrition was a very big part of this one. We would always cook for ourselves. We would always know what we were eating to kind of fuel ourselves the right way. Nutrition is something that you cannot overlook when you're training, of course. We would go in, we would do our schoolwork, throughout the middle of the day. Then that's when we would go out and do our work, hit on the cages, do our fielding stuff, just get better on the field overall. And then at night we would go lift for 2 hours a day. That was an everyday process. From the nutrition to the running to the lifting to the baseball stuff to the schoolwork, of course. It was a nonstop program that we had put together, and we were doing that, almost 7 days a week. We wouldn't take a day off because that was fun for us. That was what we enjoyed doing, and we had a goal. We didn't really know what that goal was at that time. We just knew we wanted to be better. We wanted to be a little bit better every single day. And then at the end of the day, it would all come together. We didn't know when it was going to come together. We didn't know what the purpose was for. We just knew that we wanted to be better individuals. And that's kind of what we put together. This was an opportunity for me to really come back that next fall season at Santa Barbara City College and transform who I was. And that's exactly what that, 5, 6 month period can do. And actually, a 6 month period can absolutely revolutionize your life. It doesn't have to be years. If you can put your head down for 6 months and grind that out, you will come back on the other side a brand new person. And that's exactly what happened. So then I went back to Santa Barbara City College for that 2020 fall. And that was my best fall that I had ever, played in baseball. I was bigger, I was more explosive, I was moving faster, I was throwing well from the outfield, and everything seemed to be working and ready for the season. February 2021 rolled around, and that wasn't the case. They decided to cancel the season again. And that was when I was like, you know what? I'm 3 years into college. It's time for me to move on and try to play somewhere. So I moved on to Everett Community College up in Seattle. Um, there, I was told I was going to play, but then I arrived too late and some coaching staffing happened, and I didn't end up playing there either. I got one at bat during that season, hit a double off the wall in my first pitch, and that was that season. Um, so then after that, with the Everett coaches, they gave me the opportunity to go play for the Yakima Valley Pippins. They offered me a 10-day contract in the West Coast League, and little did I know at that time period that would be the best thing for my career ever, baseball wise. Um, After that first night, I remember this vividly. I went 2 for 5, hit two scorching balls, and I was offered a full season contract that very next day. So that was like all the hard work that I had done at that point had paid off in one night, for me essentially. I ended up playing a month and a half with the Pippins, and during that month and a half, I was just focused on having a good time. I was playing the best I had ever had, but that was because I had spent the past year and a half working as hard as I could, and it was finally showing off at that time period. Little did I know during that whole time, a bunch of college scouts, pro scouts, everybody was coming to watch my games, but that wasn't in my head. In my head, I was just trying to have a good time with my guys, win some games, and just overall have a great time. And that's exactly what I did. And that made me fall in love with the game all over again. And, came July of that year, 2021, and I got a call the morning of day 3 saying, "Hey, there's a chance." And I'm like, okay, how did this happen, for me? And, 19th round came along and there's my name on the screen. And I was like, this is absolutely surreal. 2 years ago, I was nobody. I was a skinny kid from Vegas, and then all of a sudden, here's my name on the draft screen. I was never a top prospect. I was never a guy that, went to all the showcases and was absolutely blowing everybody out. That was never me. So seeing this happen was just absolutely insane. And then with my time with the Marlins, I was there for, 3 seasons, worked really hard and, came up a little bit short, got released back in July of 2023. And many people at that point would have said, that's it, my career is over. Um, but I decided to take that as, I can keep going with this. I can work even harder and I can do something with this. So that's when I discovered, baseball more around the world, start taking a more worldly view on baseball instead of just, I want to make it to the major leagues. That's it. There's so many other avenues that you can go play in Europe, Asia, pretty much everywhere. And through that discovery, I was given the opportunity to go play independent ball in Japan. I was there for 11 months, and that ended up being the most amazing experience of my life. Being there with a different culture and just kind of going through it, learning how they play baseball just helps you, understand yourself, understand them, gives you a whole different perspective on not just baseball, but life itself, you know. Um, so then, come back from the 11-month journey that I was there over there. I love calling it a journey because it wasn't just going over there, it was really transforming my life into who I am today. And over there, they decided to have me pitch as well as hit. I actually won the home run title over there that year. Got the most home runs in the league, so it was still hitting very well. But I had a good arm from the outfield, and they're like, you know what? Let's try you on the mound. And let me say that beginning of that mound experience was brutal. It is so much different than what you expect, as a position player. You don't understand what it is to be a pitcher until you finally become a pitcher, you
Right.
know. But that also gives me the edge to, understand hitters more because I was that hitter, right? So I understand how to, get them out a little bit better. I understand what they're thinking up at the plate, a lot of an edge that most pitchers don't have. So I've spent pretty much the last year working on, my pitching craft and all that stuff. And that ended up landing me a job here in the Atlantic League, which is, the highest level of indie ball, in the States. You know, that's pretty much it. That's my journey so far. So
Well,
far, it's not done.
it's a great journey, not too many people can say they've done what you've done, and it's a story you can look back on and say, hey, like this was looking back on it, this was an amazing opportunity I had of a lifetime. And from not playing it, basically getting a single college at bat to getting drafted, getting your name called in the draft. What's something that the Japanese culture has taught you as an individual that you take into your daily life as a human being?
I will say going to Japan has finally let me understand my why I played this game. My why in this game, I always thought, was for my teammates, for me, moving up to the next level. That's not why. You play for the fans out there, for the kids out there that come to watch you play every day. You know, being over there has really, they're very respectful and how they run their culture and all that stuff, and I didn't quite understand that part till I got over there. Everybody looks up to everybody. Everybody wants to understand your life. Everybody wants to talk to you and grow with you as a person. And that's just how they run their daily lives you know. So going over there, playing the games, seeing all the kids wanting my autograph, seeing all the kids coming to my game and asking me questions, the little Japanese kids that memorized English words just to
Yeah.
talk to me. That was something that I would have never gotten if it wasn't for this game. If I hadn't worked for that year, I would have never gone to Japan. I would have never understood that and seen that happen. So then it was also on the flip side. I was also taking Japanese classes to be able to communicate with them as well. And near the end of the season, I was able to finally, get to that point where I was able to communicate with the kids. I was able to communicate with the parents and the fans that used to come to all the games and all the people that used to do all the chants. That was something that really blessed my life and really helped me, understand a brand new perspective. And then as I come over into the Atlantic League here, it's the same thing. Just something I hadn't realized, something I had missed before, you know, seeing all the kids, being there before the games, talking to all the little kids, that come up to the game. That is something that you strive for now, apart from just the field. You know, the field is a little part of it, but if you're able to change someone's life, that's what you're striving for.